And welcome back. Some huge changes are coming to our US housing market, given the fact that average mortgage rates have increased by 80 basis points over the past 2 weeks alone, going from 5.99% to 6.80% for an average 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And on top of that, housing inventory increased a whopping 78% over the past 12 months alone. So in today's video, I'm going to share exactly what's happening right now regarding home prices, housing inventory, price reductions, and much, much more. This will give us some indication of what lies ahead with our US housing market. And by the way, today's video is based on my own analysis of Realtor.com's data. So I hope you guys appreciate this original analysis in today's video. And by the way, this video in particular takes me hours to make. So if you guys appreciate that, of course, if you do, please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And of course, hit the like button. And with that said, let's go ahead and dive right into the video here. I have a lot to share. Again, this is based on a report, or actually data from Realtor.com. Here's a report here, which again, I did not read. Instead, go to realtor.com/research/data. Click on this right here, which is weekly inventory, and then click on this link right here, which more or less takes you to this nerdy spreadsheet here. So here's the data here. All right, so for the week ended February 11th, here's what we have. Asking prices increased by 7.9% compared to 1 year ago. But by the way, these are year-over-year changes, but I'm going to compare how this last week compares to years past going back to 2018, and also share a summary and also some predictions towards the end of this video here. So let's talk about asking prices. Because asking prices increased by 7.9% nationwide for the week ended February 11th. So this is an interesting trend because for the past 10 weeks in a row, we've been seeing single-digit increases of asking prices nationwide, which is quite a bit different compared to 2022. There was actually only 4 weeks in 2022 where we saw single-digit gains, and that was for the last 4 weeks of 2022. Whereas this year, we've been seeing single-digit increases every single week this year. And by the way, this gain of 7.9% is more or less half what we saw back in the fall months last year. So for example, on August 13th, I guess that was summer technically, we saw a 16% increase of asking prices. Now again, only 7.9%. Let's talk about housing inventory. I have a lot to share regarding this. Housing inventory increased 70.1% compared to the same week of 2022, a gain of 70.1%. Also, as a note right here, this is actually below the gains reported by AltosResearch.com. They're reporting gains of around 78% over the past 12 months. Realtor.com is reporting gains of 70%. But I'm making this video for you guys for several months now. Realtor.com as well as Altos tend to have, or more or less in line regarding inventory numbers. So just want to point that out, a little bit different compared to Realtor.com and Altos for the past couple weeks here. Anyways, the gain of 70% is definitely significant though, right? Now, having said that, this gain of 70.1% is not too much below the 12-month high that was set 2 weeks ago on January 28th, where we saw a 70.8% increase. Now it's just below that at 70.1%. So even though year-over-year increases have more or less slowed for the past 2 weeks, we're still very, very close to the 12-month high of 70.8%. On top of that, the inventory has been increasing in 18 out of the last 22 weeks. As you can see right here, for the past 22 weeks, 18 of those weeks reported increases compared to 1 year ago, despite the fact that we've been seeing fewer new listings for the past 32 weeks in a row, which is absolutely insane. So these gains of housing supply is really due to a pullback in home buying demand and not due to surging of new listings. So in regards to that, look at this. New listings have been decreasing compared to the same time frame of 2022 for 32 consecutive weeks. But again, even though inventory has been decreasing for 32 consecutive weeks, housing supply has been increasing or been on more or less an upward trajectory ever since mid-May last year. Now, here's something that's new that I want to report to you guys as well, because for this period right here, which is more or less January, we actually saw single-digit decreases of new listings. However, look at this, because for the past 2 weeks in a row, we're back to double-digit decreases in new listings across the United States. Now, if you guys recall, we saw double-digit declines more or less from October all the way through November last year. It kind of fluctuated for December, but again, for January, we saw single-digit increases or decreases. Now we're back to double-digit decreases, which of course would put downward pressure on inventory levels. Now, speaking of inventory levels, have a look at this because here's data from altosresearch.com. Again, they have a really good YouTube channel if you guys want to check out national stats for the housing market. For the week ended February 10th this year, there's approximately 443,000 houses for sale. 1 year ago, approximately 249,000. And by my dumb math, that's an increase of 78%, as you can see right there. Despite this, though, it's interesting to see that inventory has been declining since November last year, despite the fact that inventory is up by about 70 to 78% compared to 12 months ago. Now, here's exactly what I mean by that, because inventory levels right now at 443,000, this is actually the lowest levels going back to June 24th last year. And on top of that, as you guys can see right here, inventory has been more or less decreasing ever since November last year. I also want to discuss how fast or how slow houses are selling in the US right now, because the median days in the market is up by 23 days compared to 12 months ago. This means it's taking approximately 23 days longer to sell a house compared to a year ago, or just over 3 weeks longer. And this, by the way, is the biggest increase in at least the past 12 months. And on top of that, houses are taking longer to sell in the US compared to 12 months ago for now 29 consecutive weeks. Again, houses taking longer to sell compared to the same time frame 1 year ago for 29 consecutive weeks. And last week, it increased by 23 days. And of course, a friendly reminder when talking about days in the market, these are based on closed home sales. Therefore, this is a lagging indication. In regards to the number of price reductions in the US, that increased by 154.3% last week compared to the same time frame of 2022. It actually came down pretty significantly compared to the previous week. The previous week was a gain of 170%. At that time, that was the biggest increase over the past 12 months. Now, having said that, we've been seeing triple-digit increases in the number of price reductions in the US for 13 out of the last 15 weeks. As you can see right here, triple-digit gains in 13 out of the past 15 weeks, going back to the beginning of November last year. So that's the number of price reductions. Let's have a look at the share of price drops according to altosresearch.com. Because for the week ended February 10th this year, the share was 32%. Take a look at this though, because approximately 3 months ago, back in mid-November last year, the share was 43%. Therefore, the share of price reductions has decreased by about 11 percentage points over the past 3 months. Additionally, at 32% right now, the share of price drops, this is actually the lowest levels since July 8th last year. Now, here's exactly what I mean by that. Here's the share of price reductions in the US. Again, at 32% right now, the lowest levels since July 8th right there, when the share was also about 32%. Of course, one thing I have to mention though is that 32% compared to the same time frame over the past 3 years, we're still at very much high levels. 32% right now, 12 months ago, it was 18%. 2 years ago, it was 19%. And pre-COVID, just before COVID, back in February 21st, 2020, the share of price drops was 25%. I also want to share how last week compares to years past going back to 2018. So here's 2021 through 2018. During that same time period, we're seeing this last week. Again, the biggest aha moment for me, of course, is huge increases of asking prices in 2021 and 2022 versus only a 7.9% gain this year, which is more or less on par with what we saw back in 2019. Also, of course, we saw huge decreases of housing inventory over the past several years. And of course, this year, giant increases by an increase of 70%. Of course, price drops were more or less non-existent over the past several years. But this year, a whole different story, a giant increase of 154.3%. Whereas back in February 2019 compared to February 2018, we only saw a 14.1% increase. Also, interesting enough, over the past several years, houses on average were selling faster compared to the previous year. Whereas this year, a gain of 23 days. Houses selling for about 23 days longer compared to 12 months ago. All right, so I know that was a lot to cover in today's video, so I actually want to provide a summary and then kind of some predictions of what may lie ahead in our US housing market. So number one, inventory has been rising year over year in 18 out of the last 22 weeks. It actually rose by 70% last week compared to 12 months ago. This growth rate is very much significant given the fact that we've been seeing fewer new listings for the last year for the last 32 consecutive weeks. Housing supply is currently at the lowest levels seen since late June last year. Also, the gap between last year and this year for new listings is no longer shrinking. This is because over the past 2 weeks, we've been seeing double-digit decreases compared to 12 months ago. In contrast, new listings were decreasing by single digits in the previous 4 weeks. And number two, mortgage rates had been on a downward trend this year until we hit February. Average 30-year fixed-rate mortgages have risen from 5.99% as of February 2nd this year to 6.80% as of February 17th. In other words, rates have increased approximately 80 basis points over the past 2 weeks alone, which is absolutely insane. Number three, we saw a huge increase in the number of reduced price listings over the past few months and triple-digit year-over-year gains in 13 out of the past 15 weeks. However, the share of price drops has been more or less on a downward trend ever since mid-November last year. In my personal opinion, one of the reasons we could be seeing this decrease of price reductions could be twofold. One is that home sellers may have actually finally received the memo that our housing market has been slowing down. Therefore, they're pricing their houses accordingly rather than trying to set records set back in 2022. And number two, this could be due to the fact that inventory has been decreasing for the past 3.5 months. Also, this decrease of housing supply narrows the options for home buyers, and also it decreases competition amongst other home sellers. And number four, houses are taking longer to sell compared to 12 months ago for now 29 consecutive weeks. Again, though, this is a lagging indicator of our housing market. So what are some potential huge changes ahead, given the fact that average mortgage rates have been above 6% ever since October last year? And on top of that, rates have increased by 80 basis points over the past 2 weeks. Number one, average rates have increased approximately 2.7 percentage points over the past 12 months. This causes a 27% decrease in buyers' purchasing power. And number two, housing affordability is still an issue across the United States. It was, past tense, it was improving when rates and also home prices were going down, but rates have increased approximately 80 basis points over the past 2 weeks. So buyers looking to purchase a $400,000 home today using a 5% down payment, those home buyers are going to pay approximately $200 more per month today versus only 2 weeks ago for your average monthly housing payment. And obviously, that's a significant increase in your average monthly housing payment in just the last 2 weeks alone. And number three, the National Association of Realtors reported a small increase of pending home sales or contracts being signed between buyers and sellers, an increase of 2.5% in December. This could translate to more closed home sales in the next 1 to 2 months compared to November and December last year. However, though, sales should remain subdued. This will not be a repeat of 2022 or 2021. We need more housing market data, especially during the spring months, to gauge what will happen to our US housing market this year. One thing I do want to say, though, is that it appears that our housing market trajectory, or the direction of our housing market, is highly rate dependent. In other words, if rates stay above, let's just say 6.5%, I would imagine that's going to cause our housing market to correct further. In contrast, though, if rates were to decrease below 6%, that could spur home buying demand once again. Of course, I am not a real estate market fortune teller. Time will tell. Of course, I'll definitely keep you posted. And number 4, to combat inflation, the Fed raised rates by 25 basis points on February 1st this year. This, of course, increases interest rates for HELOCs, credit cards, and new auto loans. But of course, saving rates also increase as well. We're seeing inflation start to slow down, but not by very much. It still remains sticky. Rate hikes are expected to be smaller this year by the Fed. The street is expecting 2 consecutive 25 basis point rate hikes in March and May, and potentially another one in June. In comparison, the Fed raised rates by 75 basis points 4 times in 2022. Of course, how much the Fed decides to raise rates this year depends on incoming data, especially regarding inflation numbers. And number 5, average 30-year fixed rate mortgages were above 7% for the majority of October. We saw the true effects regarding these high rates in November and December stats. Huge declines in home sales, and of course, home prices decreasing by about 11% since June last year. Of course, the big question is, how will home buyers react to rates increasing by 80 basis points over the past 2 weeks? In my personal opinion, we could be seeing more cancellations as home buyers got their offer accepted when rates are at 6%, and they couldn't lock in the rate until rates have already increased to 6.5%. So we could see an increase of cancellations in the weeks to come. And of course, due to rising rates, we could be seeing some more home buyers putting their plans on hold to buy houses. On the other hand, some home buyers may have been able to lock in rates when rates were closer to 6% rather than 6.8%. This could cause a slight bump in home sales for March, but we will see. And number 6, we're starting to see some very early signs that home buying demand is once again decreasing. So for example, according to the MBA, applications for mortgages decreased in 2 out of the last 3 weeks. And on top of that, applications are still down by about 43% compared to 1 year ago. Also, home tours have been more recently been on a downward trend as well, according to data from ShowingTime as well as Redfin's Home Buyer Demand Index. However, new home sales have risen slightly over the past 3 months. From October through December last year, a slight increase of new home sales nationwide. Also, pending home sales have more recently started to rise, but still well below last year's levels. The National Association of Realtors will report January's pending home sale index in about a week. And of course, I'll make a video for you guys in about a week for that. And again, this is very early signs of home buying demand. And of course, we need more data. Number 7, I wouldn't be surprised to see negative year-over-year median sold prices nationwide in the next month or so, given the sharp increase in prices, which started in mid-February last year. So home prices more or less skyrocketed starting in mid-February this year, but we're not going to see a repeat this year because rates right now, again, are at 6.80%, and rates 1 year ago were around 4%. Now, having said that, I should clarify because if rates stay elevated, I should say, at around 6.8% or above 6.5%, we're not going to see anything like what we saw last year. And when that happens, where we have home prices decreasing compared to 1 year ago on a national level, that's going to be all over the news, which is probably going to surprise some people, but of course, it's not going to surprise you guys. And number 8, these videos, especially this one, take me hours to make. So hope you guys appreciate that. Of course, if you do, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Hope you guys have an awesome day. I appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next video.